Hey, everybody. KMO here, and I have a question that I'm going to answer. The question comes from Danny, and he writes, quoting, I don't think he's quoting me. I think it's sort of a, I don't know, like an archetypal quote, maybe making reference to an argument that he, or a pattern of communication that he encounters regularly. But Danny writes, quote, "I'm not an AI doomer, but insert terrifying outcome," close quote. How can you not be an AI doomer? No one seems to be able to come up with a scenario which doesn't end in doom. And then Jake follows up with, "If we don't make AI right, somebody else will make AI wrong." Okay. I disagree with both. First, just for the people who don't feel like sitting through all my ramblings, let me read a quote from a blogger whose Substack I just discovered recently and I like quite a bit. All right. The blogger is Daniel Jeffries, and I don't remember the name of his blog, but I'll have a link to it in the show description. The episode, well, this is not an episode, this is a YouTube video. I will have a link to his blog in the description for the video. So, Daniel writes, "When it comes to technology, there is one clear pattern in history. Humanity has always adopted to and integrated new technology. Always. Every time. As in 100% success rate. That doesn't mean there are not short-term bursts of disruption and chaos and change, but in the end, humanity morphs with its technology and reorganizes around it." Okay, and he has a lot more to say on this topic. In fact, he's got a whole blog post, which I haven't finished reading yet, but which I generally agree with the major thrust, which is all this talk about slowing down AI so we can get a handle on it. Fuck that. Speed up AI development. Let's get it going. Come on. And to support that argument, he says, look, you cannot sit and think your way through all the potential ramifications of any new technology. The only way to work it out and integrate it into the human, civilization and the human pattern of inhabiting this landscape is to put it into use, try it, and then fight fires as they erupt. And that's what OpenAI did. And, think about it. And he's quoting Tyler Cowen here, who wrote a piece on AI saying, when somebody first started to discover fire, were there people saying, hey, don't use that, fire's bad, fire hurts, fire can burn people, you could burn everybody to death if you start using that? Probably not, because it was so darn useful. Once you figured out how to use it, the question of whether or not to use it, it was immaterial. You were going to use it. It was so useful. And, at the advent of fire, when people started using it to cook their food and, harden their spear points and whatnot, nobody said, hey, what if somebody shouts fire in a crowded theater? Why? Because there were no theaters at the time, and there wouldn't be theaters until humans had advanced considerably in terms of their social complexity, and step one on that journey was fire, So the idea that we're going to pause for any amount of time, 6 months, 10 years, 100 years, whatever, and think our way through all of the possible, bad outcomes from implementing artificial intelligence and, more dangerously artificial general intelligence leading to artificial superintelligence, we're just not that smart. We're not going to spin this thought universe out in our heads and then navigate it in the abstract and by doing so, work our way past all of the potential pitfalls before we actually encounter them. Reality doesn't work that way. And, somebody else said, might have been Geoffrey Hinton, who, was a very early pioneer in neural networks, and it was his work on computer vision and a paper that he and his colleagues published, I think in 2012, which really led to the explosion of applications for deep learning and, basically just feeding huge amounts of data into these algorithms with all their hidden layers and just seeing what happens. That Geoffrey Hinton is largely, I don't want to say responsible, but he's certainly a recognized early figure, an early pioneer in that field. And he had this, totally cushy job at Google, where I don't know how much he was making. It was surely, I would surely stop what I'm doing right now in order to go and collect Geoffrey Hinton's former salary at Google. But he left Google so that he could, with good conscience, ring the alarm bells. And basically his his major concern, and it's one that I've articulated in the past as well, I'm not saying that, Geoffrey Hinton is cribbing from me, but, it's a common concern, is that the commercial pressure, that Google was sitting on the AI that Blake Lemon identified as Lambda for a long time, and they hadn't released it into the world. They hadn't really integrated it into a lot of their products. They were just working with it, experimenting with it, going slow. But then when Microsoft bought a 49% stake in OpenAI and then incorporated GPT-4 into Bing, their search engine, their version of the Google search engine, which had always been, not even an also-ran, really just kind of a footnote, just kind of a, oh, sure, Google has competition. Look, there's Bing. Does anybody use it? No. But now that Bing Chat is powered by GPT-4, I usually have a Bing browser open. I mean, I consult it often, and prior to that, it may have been years before, between episodes of opening Bing and using that search engine, or opening Edge and using their search engine. So Geoffrey Hinton, the concern that he expressed is, look, now that Microsoft has incorporated GPT-4 into not only their search, but they're implementing it and they're integrating it into all manner of software that they publish. Google has no choice, or so they see it, no economic option other than to match Microsoft step for step, because really this is Google's game to lose. Google is the uncontested, until just recently, king of search. And, that's where their money comes from. They have their fingers in a lot of pies, but without search, none of that works. So there is no stopping, pausing, and figuring out how to do it right. We really just have to push forward and, do it as best we can. And when I say we, I mean, I'm just a commentator. I'm not really, I interface with the AI. I'm an end user, but I'm not helping to develop it. I'm just, paying attention to what's going on, other than the tech suddenly got a lot, smarter and more capable than it was just a few months ago. But that's enough, sort of dispassionate, objective reporting, and you can put objective in scare quotes. I recommend it, in fact. But, an attempt at objectivity. Now, here's just my, under the hood, secret desire, emotional response. My response is let it rip. I am not in favor of a moratorium. I am not in favor of pausing. Why? A couple of reasons. One, AI is supposedly going to upset everybody's apple cart. Well, you know what? Not only has my apple cart lost a wheel, fallen over, all the apples spilled out, I ate the ones that weren't rotten, and the rest have, fermented, and I got drunk off the juice, and then I burned the wheel that fell off, to make a fire. My apple cart is in shambles. So if there's going to be some, great force that upends everybody's apple carts, well, fine, let's see it. My apple cart is not worth preserving. So, flip the apple carts is what I say. And even deeper than that, because there's a tinge of resentment to that. And while I'll admit it here on a video that maybe 200 people will watch, I'm not really proclaiming it. But here's something I can proclaim, and something that I can stand behind with a bit more vigor and maybe less abashedness. And it's this: I'm 55. I want to see the high-tech future. I want the moon bases. I want boots on the ground on Mars. I want fully capable humanoid, not necessarily, human looking, but humanoid robots roaming the landscape. And I want intelligence to infiltrate its way into every level of society, every aspect of our daily lives. There's so much of our lives, so much of the frustration in our lives comes from the fact that we have to abide by rules which made sense when they were written, but they don't apply to our particular situation. At least in practical terms, they don't apply, but in terms of the coercive power of government being brought down on us if we don't abide by those rules that don't make sense, very frustrating, very frustrating. So what's the alternative? Well, it is to infuse intelligence and decision-making power into every level of societal organization, so that we are less dependent on blind, stupid rules, and we have better recourse to, intelligent resolution of our struggles, our competitions with others, our needs. But ultimately, I want to see the high-tech future. And am I willing to risk AI dystopia in order to see that high-tech future? Yeah, I am. So bring it on. All right, rather than go on and on, I'll stop there. Stay well.